In 1989, the United States Special Operations Command set out to improve its equipment. One area for improvement was close quarter battle weapons. Among all branches, there was a massive variation of weapons platform, so the plan was made to standardize all new firearms. With this offensive handgun weapon system was born. New handgun needed to be chambered in 45 ACP, must be durable and reliable with high pressure plus P ammunition. The new handgun needs to be able to mount a sound suppressor and laser aiming device. It needs to be corrosion resistant. Only two companies stepped up to submit guns for the OHWS, the American Colt and the German H&K. Both were contracted to create 30 handguns for testing. H&K did not take this OHWS lightly. They designed the handgun from the ground up, taking into account all of the requirements of the OHWS and desires of the civilian market. This new handgun was the first version of the Mark 23, designated the Mark 23 Mod O. The Colt submission was merely called the Colt OHWS and was based off an existing Colt design. It was an abortion of a gun based off of 1911. After the first stage of testing for the OHWS, SOCOM decided to only continue with the H&K submission. Extensive testing was done on a handful of Mark 23s, the hardest testing ever done at the time. The guns were tested in extreme heat and cold, ranging from minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit and up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Mud, sand, and ice were also a part of the testing environment, with the defining metric being mean rounds between failure. The OHWS called for at least 2,000 MRBF, but the Mark 23 averaged just over 6,000 MRBF, with the most being recorded at 15,122 MRBF. A 30,000 round endurance test was conducted on 3 Mark 23s, with the only part breakage being the non-essential rubber O-ring on the barrel. After an endurance test, all 3 guns still shot 2.5-inch groups at 25 yards. The testing proved the Mark 23 to be a worthy winner of the OHWS, and the military ordered 1,950 units at a cost of $1,186. The first units were delivered on May 1, 1996. The Mark 23 would hit the civilian market 1 year later. So what is the Mark 23? I'm glad you asked. Hello guys, Gene here with G Squared Tactical. Some years ago, I was in a gun store, had never owned an H&K. I had heard of the H&K brand, but thought that for it to be out of my price range. And in a lot of ways at that time it was. Well, I seen what I didn't know then, but of course know now, was the H&K USP 45. I thought it was ugly, thought it was kind of gawky looking. I asked the lady behind the counter if I could look at the gun, asked if I could take the gun apart. I did. Didn't really know what I was looking at. I was used to looking at Glocks, Smith & Wessons, Rugers, things of that nature. The internals of this thing looked weird to me. Seemed hollow in a lot of ways. At that time anyway, seemed cheap. Everything seemed bulky and blocky. And I didn't know at the time that that meant just how well of a build that this gun was, or that the USP was. And although it is true that the USP 45 hit the civilian market before the Mark 23 did, without the Mark 23, the USP 45 would not exist, as it began testing, or I guess the idea of the Mark 23 in 1990. But of course the USP 45 hit the civilian market before the HK23 was. This is a big gun, so in as much as it was bought for nostalgia reasons, because it is a very expensive gun, when I purchased that USP 45, even after having it, I still thought all the same things. Gawky, ugly, doesn't sound the same when you rack the slide. All things I associated with being cheap. I know now that weren't the case at all. Trey and I took it out to the range, and I just couldn't quit thinking about it. I couldn't quit thinking about how accurate it was, how seemingly 7 or 8 rounds of hitting the exact same spot at, 15, 20, 30 yards, and just how it recoiled like a 9mm. And it just was such a joy and a pleasure to shoot. And we put mondo rounds down range that day without a single hiccup or failure. I cannot explain, after having been to the range that day, how a gun went from, to me, being gawky and ugly to being one of the most beautiful things I had ever saw. Because of, and to me, becoming one of the highest quality firearms that I personally had ever owned. And it being a 45, me being old school and being on that 45 drug, the USP was definitely a contender for truck, nightstand. Not really carryable per se, but in as much as this might be a nostalgic purchase for me, something with history, I also didn't buy this gun just to be put in the safe, to be a safe princess, because this gun can be very effective and, I guess you could say, what's the word I'm looking for, practical, if you will, for truck, nightstand. In fact, since Trey and I have done the range video on this gun, it's been on my nightstand since. Now, of course, in my opinion, any nightstand gun needs to have a light on there. So I bought this on the front of this big, huge, squared off trigger guard here. There's threads that go all the way, pass all the way through the front of the trigger guard. At first I didn't really know what that was, but then when I saw this H&K part, well, it's not, parts from H&K, I think it's called HK rather, should I say. It's not H&K, it's HK parts. They make this rail, apparently theirs was the original one, that threads into the front of that barrel. So essentially it slides down this rail in the front of the gun here, but it doesn't have pick cuts underneath like you would see on the traditional, say like this FNX, or I'm sorry, this FN here that has these rail slots in the front. They don't have those on the Mark 23 or the USP. And they used to make this thing exclusively for this. It was called an illuminator, I believe, but I'm to understand they don't make it anymore. You can't purchase it. So this option is available. It's a little gawky looking, adds more weight to an already heavy gun. But again, if you're using it as a nightstand gun, as deadly accurate as this thing is, and being a 45, it really doesn't matter. It fits the bill, serves the purpose, screws in there nicely, and I've put my stream light, I've put my Surefire, I've put just about any light on here I wanted to put on here. Of course, it does have the threaded barrel, and in the pack it came with extra O-rings here, and it came in just I wish that it would have came in that soft carrying case with all those slots for magazines and everything like my USP did, but you'd think if you paid $2,500 you'd get that, but I didn't. This is what it came in. 2 12-round magazines. You got this +0 just to kind of make it stick out at the bottom a little further here from this Solom 2, and then also from Solom 2 I got this +3 here so that I can put 15 rounds in here, because of course you have FN, FNX Tactical and stuff that has a gun that's actually smaller than this that holds 15 rounds, and I just like having the extra rounds. But it did come with 2 flush mount 12-round magazines, metal mags, and the texturing on the grip on each side is more of a sandpaper type, but it doesn't really snag on your clothes. I've never had it to snag. Nice texturing on the front and the back, almost puts you in mind of Glock. Just this huge, oversized, I mean, the Incredible Hulk could get his fingers in that trigger guard. Just no chance that gloves or anything else is going to hinder you from getting in there. Does have this mag release on each side here, underneath or right behind at the rear of the trigger guard. A lot of people don't like that. I actually love that. I wish all guns were that way, because I can simply drop my index finger here after shooting and drop the mag without adjusting my grip. I really like that. what I'm trying to say. It is a big gun, unless you have some kind of leg rig or you are in the military. Of course, you're probably not going to be carrying this around or concealing this or anything like that. So in that case, you know, you might want to go with the USP-45, because this is an overall length of 9.6, almost 9.7 inches, overall height of 5.9, overall width of 1.53, with a barrel length of 5.87, almost 6 inches, sight radius of 7.76, and a weight of about 2.5 pounds without a loaded magazine and without this rail and without this flashlight on the front of here. So the way that I have it set up with the 15 rounds here, I haven't checked it, but there's every chance that's a 3-pound, you know, piece of machinery there. So the chances that the average person is going to be lugging this thing around is pretty dang slim. But definitely very, very good use on the nightstand or truck gun. It does have a decocker. I like the way that you're able to ease the decocker down. It doesn't just slam forward, because I have had decockers to fail before. If you don't think that could happen, watch some videos online. I can attest to the fact that it can. So I really do like the fact that you can decock the hammer, but you can also drop it really, really slow. Does have a safety, can be locked back, the hammer back, safety up, and carried that way. Or again, you can decock it, shoot your first shot from a double action. That's the way that I keep it on my nightstand, just like that. Hammer down, 1 in the pipe, 15 in the magazine, safety off, and it's ready to shoot from a double action, which on the double action pull, you're around 11.5 pounds, about average. Single action trigger is about 5.1. When I did my test gauge, trigger pull gauge, I was coming in around about 5. It's a little bit better than your average polys these days. Again, I don't know everything that I need to know or should know about all the history concerning this gun. I know that the sights on here, that has got to be very, very specific to H&K, because that is like the biggest cutout for a sight that I've ever seen in my life on the rear. The front is dovetailed in. This is 3 dot white, and they pick up very, very nicely, very narrow, which just allows this thing to be just nasty, just hitting the same spot over and over at 15, 20, 25 yards accurate. And I'm sure, again, that there's a lot of things about this gun. I could go on and on about the metal type, the finish, the match grade, it just on and on and on I could go, but when a video gets too lengthy, people kind of lose interest. Just wanted to give you a history on this baby, on this beast. Kind of nostalgic purchase for me. Listen, if there's anything that you want to know, please believe me, I've done extensive research on this gun. There's a lot of things that I want to say that I know time will not permit for. So hey, comment in the comment section. Tell us anything maybe we left out, and ask any questions, because I assure you that the research has been done. If you have any questions about this firearm, we can certainly answer those for you. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure you comment. We will respond. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Run over and follow us on Rumble as well, as we're on that platform now too. And again, we thank you guys for watching. You have a blessed day.